All right, guys, how to overcome resentment. So I've seen a lot of comments and people reaching out saying, hey, I'm a few weeks clean, I'm a few days clean, and I'm starting to feel a lot of anger, a lot of irritability. So the first thing is that part of this might be because you're getting off a substance. Your brain is rewiring. Things are kind of coming back into homeostasis. So I would advise you not to freak out too much because this is part of the process of getting clean. There's often a lot of irritability, a lot of anger for those first couple weeks. Now, a second part as well may be that oftentimes people use substances to overcome and mask painful emotions, experiences, things that they've never wanted to address, traumas from the past, etc. I know that's what I did myself. Not everyone does this, but a lot of people do. And so if a lot of anger is coming up, you're a couple weeks in, maybe there's some resentments that have been, suppressed by the substances, by the weed, by the alcohol, whatever the behavior was. So it's really important to address these and look at them from a holistic perspective and learn the tools to overcome these resentments. Because if you've heard the analogy, resentment is like holding a hot coal and expecting the other person to get burned. It really only hurts the host. Now, it can hurt the other person as well if you're lashing out, being passive aggressive. Being in an angry state is not always pleasant. It's a very powerful emotion. Now, there's another analogy I really like, which is resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Right? It doesn't make sense. And that's essentially what resentment is. So in learning how to overcome resentment, what they talk about in recovery support groups is to do a few things. The first one is to acknowledge what the resentment is and be really open and honest. Let yourself feel that anger and the pain and the rage, whatever there is, and just really be honest, like, hey, what this person did really hurt me. Next thing is to say how it affected me. So did it affect self-esteem, relationships, career, work, well-being, sense of peace, whatever it is that the person that you're angry at or the event that you're angry at, whatever effect it had on you, write that down and be open and honest about it. Now, the third step here, and this is where most people give up and ultimately cannot get through because for a few reasons, they're not able to put their ego aside and they have maybe too much pride. Another factor might be that they like the anger, they like the resentment. It gives them a sense of power because it's a very powerful emotion. And in a way, holding on to resentment and anger can be a way for people to think that they still have power over the other person or the situation. And ultimately, as we're learning, we have no power over any person, any decision that another human being makes. The only person we can really have an effect over is ourselves. This goes the same for organizations. We cannot control organizations, we cannot control animals, we cannot control the weather, or if we're angry at God, we cannot control what God does, right? The only thing we can do is take the next best right action for ourselves. So what this is owning our part of the situation. Understanding that it takes two to tango, and oftentimes both people have played a part in the situation. So let's say you're really angry at a family member, right? Maybe they didn't treat you the way you wanted them to treat you. Maybe they said some things that weren't very nice. Well, in looking at one's own part in the situation, let's say I'm that person, I'm getting really angry and resentful, like how dare they treat me this way? My part is that I'm expecting them to treat the way I want them to treat me. And as we just discussed, we cannot control any person's behavior, thoughts, actions, etc. So in a sense, I'm putting too much expectation on them to behave the way I want to. So it's actually very selfish. So that's my part. I'm being self-centered. I'm being selfish. And this may be very hard to understand, especially if you're in that situation where you think you are the person that is being victimized, that is on the receiving end, and you have a right to be resentful. Again, what we talked about, you can continue to have that mindset, but guess who's getting hurt? You are. My guess is that they're not feeling pain, that you're feeling pain. The only one that's feeling pain is you. So it's really important to say, okay, how am I responsible for this? Maybe I like the anger. Maybe I like the feeling of control and power. Maybe I'm afraid. Maybe I'm afraid if I let this go, it's gonna ruin the relationship because I'm gonna realize, oh, this person is not someone I wanna be in a relationship with. So that's your part, there's fear there. Maybe you like the resentment because it makes you not have to worry about your other things and address other issues in your life. So it's like when I can put all my focus on how much I hate this person, I don't have to go out there and change the things in my life that I have control over and that are making me unhappy. So this is not an easy thing to do. However, it will grant you ultimate freedom. I've experienced it for myself. The last part of this is to forgive. And this comes back to responsibility too. Are you choosing not to forgive the person? Now, forgiving isn't saying, hey, I'm gonna let this behavior continue. No, it's saying, hey, I recognize that this person did X, Y, or Z. I didn't like it. Going forward, I'm gonna do my best not to let that happen in future relationships by setting stronger boundaries. And I'm not gonna continue to let what happened ruin my life. And so I'm gonna let them go. I'm gonna say, hey, you're a human being. Maybe you didn't realize to do this. I'm gonna set you free. You're now out of my heart, out of my space, out of my consciousness. You're out of my head, you're out of my consciousness, and you are free. And in doing that, you're gonna find that the anger goes away. A sense of peace arises. The realization that, okay, I don't have to carry this burden around anymore. And now I get to go, and again, like we talked about, taking responsibility, I get to go learn how to set stronger boundaries for myself so I never end up in a situation like this again. And hey, I get it. This is a 5-minute video. It's easier said than done. So if you're finding it difficult to forgive, don't give up. Don't say, okay, maybe this isn't for me. It can take a long time to forgive. It can take up to a couple of years to possibly maybe 5 years to forgive for certain situations. I know there was a situation that I was a part of that I was not able to find forgiveness for a few years, and I really was active on it. So it didn't happen overnight. And when I finally had that forgiveness and that release, it was immense. So it may take a little while, as long as you're working on it, and any chance you get to open your heart and experience a little bit of forgiveness, tap into it and learn from it. You might shell up again. The ego might come back and say, no, we can't forgive this person. But the more you continue to do this and the more you continue to practice, the more freedom you're gonna find. Now, if you need help setting boundaries, which I get, a lot of people have not learned how to set strong boundaries, especially that have addiction, hence why we turn to the substances. There's a lot of support groups and a lot of help out there that you can get. There is a support group that deals with codependency, and this is kind of what I believe is to be the main root of addiction and poor boundary setting. So there's a ton of online support group meetings out there. I can't say the names by name. However, if you search codependent recovery on Google, it's gonna pop up. Now, the reason I can't say the name out loud and on this video is because there are certain privacy protections within the group that prohibit people, especially on the social platforms, public media platforms, to say the name. It's a very private group, and what the group doesn't want is for somebody to become the spokesperson of that group, and especially making money off it. So the risk is that somebody becomes Mr. Spokesperson for the group. They go out and they do something super stupid and all of a sudden it totally reflects back on the entire group as a whole. And maybe somebody that was wanting to get into that support group, who was about to find freedom by just starting to go to meetings, sees this person do that stupid thing and is like, well, if that person is a representation of this group, I don't want anything to do with this group. I don't want to be like that person. So it prohibits that from happening. Now, obviously, as we see in the mainstream, people do break this, and it's unfortunate. But in the spirit of this video and not getting angry and having resentment towards them, all I can do is to not do that. So if you can't find the group, you can download my free recovery support resource guide down below. There's gonna be a ton of different meetings for different addictions, and you're gonna find the one for codependency. And because I'm not saying the name in public media, then it's okay for you to find it elsewhere. So check out that resource down below, and thanks for coming to the video. Talk to you next one. Peace.